Happy Friday, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We are so excited to be here. We have Arreale Turner. She is a long-term care ombudsman with the Senior Source. And I know if most of you are like me, you have no idea what an ombudsman is. Yeah. I didn't before I heard Joe and our administrator speaking about it after our hospice symposium. And it is just... it's a wonderful resource. So I just would love for you to just let us know exactly what the Senior Source does, first of all, and then what is an ombudsman and what's your role with, what is your role?
Okay. Yeah. So the Senior Source, since 1961, we have been kind of the go-to agency for aging services for older adults in the greater Dallas area. And our mission statement is kind of to help older adults by assisting, protecting, and connecting them with services regardless of income level. And our typical client is someone that is over the age of 50. And we just provide them with all kinds of resources and services with our 8 different programs. One of those programs is the Long-Term Care Ombudsman program, which is the program that I'm a part of. And just to kind of delve into what an ombudsman is, so at the core, an ombudsman is an advocate for residents. So we're there to make sure that the residents' rights aren't being violated, and we're there to address any issues or concerns that may come up about their care while they're at their facility.
So just an example, you know, we love our seniors, and we do our pajama drive every year. And we were at one of the nursing homes yesterday, Brentwood. It was amazing. These residents were so well cared for. And so I was so impressed. They were loving and sweet and so appreciative. It was really a great day. But I know there's some of those nursing homes that do not get, maybe in an outlying area, that just doesn't get the visitors. And I had a patient, I was on call one night, and there was a nursing home that called that needed an RN to come out. I think I needed to pronounce a patient that had passed. And so I went out and pronounced the patient, and the nurse on the floor said, "Joe, could you please stay? I am by myself, and I have over 80 patients to take care of, and I can't do it." And you know, we have to follow laws, and I can't do hands-on care to people that aren't on our service, and just for safety reasons and liability. But this is just an example of something I would think that I would let the ombudsman know. Is that right? That
Of course, yeah. Definitely let the ombudsman know a concern like that, because those residents, their health and safety, I feel, was in danger at that very moment, especially with having that one nurse on the floor. I mean, what if multiple medical emergencies were happening, and obviously she can't be 2 places at once. So that is definitely a concern to let your ombudsman know. And I would even say, you know, you'd want to let the Health and Human Services know, and they're the regulatory department. They regulate and oversee nursing homes and assisted livings, and I would let them know that as well.
Well, give us an example of a day in the life of an ombudsman, and say they're assigned to an assisted living in Carrollton. Tell us what they do, and just give us an example of their job over there.
Yeah, so as an ombudsman, I'll give you a kind of a peek into what my day-to-day looks like. So each ombudsman in our program, we serve different geographical regions. So my area is Garland, Richardson, and a little bit of North Dallas. So typically how I'll do it is I'll visit about 3 nursing homes in a day. And whenever we go out and visit these nursing homes or assisted livings, those visits can range anywhere from 2 to 3 hours or more, depending on what kind of situation we walk into. And as you can imagine, we've walked into all kinds of situations. So what I'll do when I go in is I'll go in, typically I'll get a census. And a census is just kind of like a list of residents, or like a roster, just so that, you know, if I'm looking for a specific resident or I need to see someone in particular, I have that kind of list to go by. And then we just go room to room talking with residents. We talk with family members, friends, staff. but obviously primarily residents, because that's our whole purpose. And, you know, before we leave the facility, if we have any concerns that were brought to our attention by our residents, and if the residents gave us consent to address those concerns, and that's you'll probably hear me say consent several times, because that's a huge thing with being an ombudsman, since we are resident directed, is that before we can do anything, we need consent. So if we get consent from that resident, then we will take that concern with typically maybe the administrator or the director of nursing, and you know, start making steps in order to get that concern resolved.
So give us an example of a concern, just a recent, something that, you know, the public would, you know, be interested in hearing about. Just
okay. Well, I can give you some common concerns that we get in our nursing facilities and assisted livings. Is a lot of the times we'll get a lot of concerns about call light response time. And, you know, when a resident presses their call light, ideally, staff should be responding within 10 minutes. Of course, we know that that doesn't happen all the time. And, you know, we've gotten reports from residents that they're waiting maybe 45 minutes, an hour, 2 hours for staff to come and answer that call light. And, you know, that's pretty serious, because whenever a resident puts on their call light, you don't know, you know, what they're putting it on for. They could have fallen, you know, they could be having some serious medical emergency. So call light response time is a big one. Also, we get a lot of concerns from residents about food. And, you know, of course, food is kind of subjective depending on the person. But we get concerns about, you know, quality of food, temperature of food when it's served, quantity, things like that. So those are some common concerns that we see.
So when you, first of all, how long have you been an ombudsman?
So I've been with the Senior Source for 4 years, but I've been an ombudsman for over a year.
What made you decide to get into that department, if you will? What's your passion behind that? What's your reason?
Well, when I was in high school, I worked in our health science technology program, training to be a CNA, and we spent a lot of time in the nursing homes, and that's where I kind of figured out that I have a real passion and desire for older adults. And that's actually where I was first introduced to what an ombudsman is. Because in every nursing home, they have like the ombudsman poster. And in that particular nursing home, they had like a picture of the ombudsman and just outline what the ombudsman does for the facility. And I was like, wow, you know, it sounds like they really make a difference, and I would love to do that.
Wow. I love that. So piggybacking on that, how is it a federally funded program? First question. And then the second question is, are ombudsmen assigned to all nursing homes and assisted livings, independent livings? Where all are ombudsmen posted, if you will?
Okay, so yes, the Ombudsman program is a federally funded program, and you know, actually, ombudsmen are federally mandated to visit all nursing homes and assisted livings by the Older American Acts.
Okay.
And then we only visit licensed nursing homes and assisted livings. We don't visit any independent livings or any unlicensed group homes or anything like that. We do have some personal care homes that are licensed that we do visit. And every nursing home and assisted living in the United States has an ombudsman program assigned to it.
I don't think a lot of people know that. I had no idea, especially if you have a loved one, or if you have a friend or a loved one of a friend that's in a nursing facility or an assisted living, just to know that there's that advocate there that does do kind of the rounds to make sure that everything is following, that the care is following above reproach protocol. So let's say somebody has a loved one or a friend of a family member of a friend that they're just not too sure about the level of care in that facility. What's the protocol to contact the Senior Source, to contact you, to get that investigation kind of rolling?
Well, yeah. So if that family member or friend has some concerns that they feel that they need some help from the ombudsman to address, they would just start by calling the senior source. Our number is 214-823-5700, reaching out, and then you would just let the front desk know what facility your loved one is at, and they'll connect you to the appropriate ombudsman.
And then they just go straight out and just start asking the questions and
right.
and that type of thing, and then consent first, like you said.
Right. Yeah. So if a family member or friend calls in a concern on behalf of a resident, we do have to get in contact with that resident, whether that be on the phone or in person, and get their consent in order to address that concern.
So is there ever a time where, if you have, let's say, a certain facility somebody's called about a certain facility or numerous people numerous times, is that something where you have to report that to the state? Is there an extra step that's taken if it's a repeat offender?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially so anytime there's any concerns like with abuse, neglect, exploitation, we will involve Health and Human Services. And also, like you said, if it's something that's happened repeatedly and it's serious and it's just not getting addressed, then yes, we will involve HHS in that.
That's great to know, because there's sometimes where, especially, which is why Joe started the podcast, because we just wanted to make sure to be able to inform people and inform families, and in addition to going into a problem situation, do ombudsmans also help families place or give ideas to families for facilities as well?
Yes. So part of our role as ombudsman is to help family members or friends with that how to choose process.
Okay.
So, of course, we cannot recommend facilities, but we can give them information about that facility, like, do they accept Medicaid? If there may possibly be some availability, we can give them some documentation on how to choose, what to do at a care plan, things like that. And then also one of the most important pieces I feel of information that we can share is kind of some common complaints and concerns that we see at that facility, since we are there on a regular basis, and that can help a family member kind of narrow down that list.
What about those sweet little residents that have no family? And, do you kind of look out for those? And
yes.
And then could you approach them? Would you just go up and say, hi, just checking on your day? Are you doing okay? So that you can do that before they sign a consent. Are you allowed to talk with the residents?
Yeah, it's our job and responsibility to visit with all residents, regardless of cognitive impairment, whether or not they can communicate. Any and all residents in that nursing home, we are actively, seeking them out in their room or wherever they may be and checking on them and trying to make sure that they're okay.
And do you make appointments with the building, or do you just show up?
We just show up. All of our visits
great.
are unannounced, so they never know when we might pop up.
So does a facility ever contact you, let's just say, as like a quality assurance part of what they do of their operations? Is that something that they ever do, is reach out and say, an extra time, or as part of, am I making sense? Like part of a quality assurance program, just as a checks and balances to make sure that their staff is caring for the patients and the residents?
Like a report card.
Like a report card.
Do you give the facility a report card?
No, ma'am. We don't do anything like that. The facility has in place like quality assurance practices. Now, they will reach out to us, sometimes if they have any concerns that they feel that we need to be involved on, or sometimes we'll have facility staff reach out to us and run past us kind of a situation, and we'll kind of work with them to try and figure out what's the best steps to try and resolve that situation, things like that.
So it's just completely, it's more of a report card on, let's say, the government's side, to make sure that all of our seniors and all of our sweet people that are in facilities that don't have a lot of people coming to check on them, don't have the volunteers, is kind of in place just to make sure that they are taken care of.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of, I mean, we're out there as an extra set of eyes, and we're just out there to be resident directed and resident centered, to make sure that, residents' voices are being heard, that they know that, because a lot of misunderstanding when a resident goes into a nursing home or assisted living is that, they lose some of their rights. And whenever they go into a facility, they still have those basic human rights that, you or I have as U.S. citizens. And then they also have resident rights specific to them being in a facility. So, it's our job to ensure that they don't forget that, and that they know that they always have someone in their corner to get issues and concerns addressed and help them be their voice.
So are all the ombudsmans visiting facilities, all the facilities in your area that you're assigned to? Is it once a week? Is it once a month? What does your rotation look like? Because I'm sure that all of the residents and the clients, probably you end up being family, and they look forward to you coming as part of, I mean, that's a big deal for people to have that consistency of the ombudsman being there. What does that look like?
Yeah, so we visit nursing facilities on a monthly basis.
Okay.
And then depending on the size of the assisted living, we can either visit it on a monthly basis, a quarterly basis, or an every other month.
How do you determine?
We determine that by the size of the facility.
Okay.
What about, and I know just doing home care, there are some of our patients that are in the home really should have a higher level of care, and they're just, they don't want to move. Or what about those residents in assisted livings that really should be in nursing homes? Have you gotten complaints that, have you gotten complaints that are not really justified or substantiated, and really that patient needs a higher level of care? Have you seen that?
There has been times where I've been in an assisted living, and, that resident, in my own personal opinion, I think may have needed some skilled care. But, that determination is really up to the facility, because they determine, what level of care they can provide, and whether or not they will give that level of assistance.
Because I know the wait time for a call light is longer in an assisted living than it would be. Like if a nursing home, if they press the button, it should be 10 minutes. Assisted living is more 30 minutes. Isn't that right?
Yeah, I mean, it really varies from facility to facility. I mean, it's dependent on how many staff they have there, how many staff is assigned to each hallway or section of the building. I mean, those factors vary.
So do you find that there are more concerns in assisted livings that you visit, or in the nursing homes?
I would say that I get more concerns from my nursing homes than my assisted livings.
Because the ratio of caregivers to the residents is probably, it's a wider gap between, people that are on staff at assisted livings might have a couple residents or a couple, versus possibly at a nursing home where they have multiple people. Like Joe's example earlier, I have 80 patients on my floor, and I'm the only one here at night. I mean, is that also something too that can be addressed by an ombudsman? Is, let's say, a family member or a friend comes in to a nursing facility after dinner time to visit a patient or a resident, and they can't find anybody there. Is that a concern that can be addressed by an ombudsman as well?
Certainly, yeah. An ombudsman definitely can address that type of concern. And, I find part of the issue with staffing ratios is that, unfortunately, in the state of Texas, there is no set staff to resident ratio.
So it's not regulated.
For nursing homes too?
No, ma'am.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
That's sad. I didn't know that either.
So that's good to know, that you can also kind of advise the families too, because you're going to know what those, let's say, nighttime staffing ratios are, and you can help advise. I know you can't recommend, or you're not going to say anything negative against a nursing home, or you can't recommend that, as you mentioned.
Right.
But can you use that information of what you already know as the evening time staffing ratios you can use that when you're guiding families.
Right, of course. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, and especially that might be something that I bring to a family member's attention if they tell me that their loved one maybe gets up in the night and they're a fall risk or, something like that. And, I may find it important to let them know, hey, at night they've got lower staff ratios, so you may want to consider a facility where those ratios are higher, where your loved one may not be in, as much risk.
And my concern is nighttime. I mean, daytime, like if the patient's on hospice or Medicare home health, or they have social workers there, there's just more staff during the day. And I filled in for a nurse one night who called in sick pretty late, and I filled in for her. And I was there at an assisted living from like 10 p.m. to about 6 a.m. I could not find anyone. I couldn't find anyone to get medication for my patient. So I complained to the director of nursing when she got there the next morning. I said there was nobody around. I searched halls. I made calls, and her response was, "I don't want you back in my building." And instead of addressing, it was very sad. And I don't know what they were doing, but my guess is those staff members were sleeping because they were not walking the halls. So that is my, I guess, soapbox, is what is going on at night, and how can the ombudsman help with that situation at night? And I know y'all don't work deep nights, but what is your suggestion on how can we be advocates for seniors in those hours that were not there Monday through Friday, 9 to 5?
Yeah, so definitely in those situations, I would encourage people with loved ones in these facilities to contact their ombudsman. We have access to the building, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So
see, I wish I had known about it. I'm a nurse and I did hospice. I didn't know about that. And I wish I had, because I would have called the ombudsman and let the ombudsman handle it instead of myself.
If there's a time, so let's say Joe had called the next day or that evening, now that we're all equipped with this information that Ombudsman exists, which is amazing, and it's a huge resource. If she had the information and she called you, let's say 5 a.m., almost to the end of her shift, still couldn't find anybody, would you be able to go and do like a pop-in visit to confirm that there is nobody there, and then you start addressing that? Or is that just something, do ombudsmans do surprise visits at night, is my basic question.
We can, if the nature of the concern, warrants that, because obviously at night most of the residents are asleep. But and I know that we have gotten complaints that, staff aren't addressing concerns at night, that they're not checking on the residents, that they're asleep. And we have made night visits and went out there just to monitor that situation because, like I said earlier, we can make unannounced visits. So if she was to call me and give me that concern, then of course I would go out, maybe do a regular visit, investigate, talk with some of the residents to see if they have experienced that as well, and then, go at night to confirm with myself, and then, address that with the administrator of that facility.
And if you find the administrator is like, oh, we're doing our best, and, then what do you do? If you feel that's not the answer I want, that's not the answer that, we want to make sure your residents are safe. So then what's the next step?
Well, I feel that as ombudsman, sometimes we can be pretty persuasive. I would probably try and, let him know that he's putting these residents at risk if there's no one there to address their needs and concerns at night, because anything can happen at any time. And, I would probably remind that administrator that, him and his license could be at risk if you're, not considering the best welfare of these residents.
I get this question a lot, especially with our pajama drive, and people want to help, but they don't know what to do. They don't know what steps to take. So if there is a woman or man, gentleman that wants to do this and volunteer and be an advocate, how can someone volunteer as an ombudsman? What are the steps on becoming an ombudsman? at the Senior Source?
Yeah, so if someone were to be a volunteer ombudsman, of course, first we would need to make sure that that person doesn't have any type of conflict of interest. So that would be like if you're a staff person at a facility, or if you are currently have a loved one that you're responsible for that's in a facility, then unfortunately you wouldn't be able to be a volunteer ombudsman. But if someone were to want to do that, then they would just reach out to the Senior Source at that number that I gave earlier, the 214-823-5700, and ask to speak with someone in the Ombudsman program about becoming a volunteer ombudsman. And, our next steps would be to reach out to you with some information on what that would look like, and then get you set up with some training classes.
That's great information. And it's online too. When I went to the Senior Source website, just to be able to read exactly all of everything that's available, all the resources that are available through the Senior Source, knowing that it's a nonprofit, which is amazing. There's a donate button on the website. I mean, there's so many great resources and ways for all of us to help. And I know you did mention before when we were talking before the podcast that the certification, the Ombudsman volunteers go through the same training and certification process, just to make sure they're well vetted and well trained.
Right.
It's a big deal. It's not just, oh, here's a manual and take a little quiz and then you can be an advocate for our seniors. It's a big deal. It's a process.
Yeah, it's a process because, I mean, like you said, we have to vet people because some people will, go into these nursing homes and they, maybe haven't been in a nursing home, before, or they've been in a nursing home that was maybe on the nicer side and maybe the one that they're assigned to is maybe not so nice. So we have to really make sure that that's something that they're prepared for and that they truly want to do. And the training that we provide, our volunteer ombudsman, is extensive. It covers a lot of information in a short amount of time. But, the ombudsman also go through about a 3-month period internship, and basically they're visiting the facility on a weekly basis as they would as a volunteer ombudsman. But the only difference is they're not able to address any complaints. Any complaints they receive, they forward to their staff ombudsman. So
it's just that continued training process to make sure that the volunteer is very comfortable, very confident. It's shadowing and being an intern, because being in facilities, if you're not used to going into nursing homes or speaking with residents in nursing homes or, things like that, it can be a little daunting. So just to make sure that people are prepared and that they understand that every single person in every single facility, I'm just thinking of yesterday's pajama delivery, there's just such amazing people, and we're all people, and we're all God's children. We need to take care of each other, and being able to serve each other in that way and have this resource that I think so many people, and hopefully all of you that are watching, will take advantage of your the Ombudsman program in every single facility, because I just didn't have any idea about this, because we're always thinking, how can we help? And the pajama drive and Pajamas for Seniors is just one little nugget of how what we as a community can do for seniors, that a lot of forgotten people that have no voice. And I hate saying forgotten people, but we go into facilities and you never know when the last visit was that somebody had, or and we always talk about our friend from church, from choir, that passed away, but laying in his bed screaming in pain and nobody's coming. That was a specific
during the day.
I mean, and that was something that we could have, knowing about this program, even just had the voice to contact the ombudsman and say, please look into this, because this is unacceptable. Broad daylight, and this person's writhing in pain, and whether or not he has a little bit to live, he hopefully is going through a rehab process, whatever it is. Every person needs that same level of respect and care and human dignity given to them. And say I go on my soapbox too, because I'm very passionate about that. I want everybody to know that they do have a voice.
Yeah.
And if they feel like they don't, then that's what you and your team is for. That's what the Ombudsman program is about.
Yeah.
That was sorry. Okay, I'm done.
No, and just raising awareness for the needs. I know 60% of nursing home residents do not get visitors.
Yeah.
And the activities director yesterday at Brentwood said no one ever does this. This is just so amazing. And the residents were so excited. They started singing Christmas carols. We didn't even have to start leading it. I mean, they just were singing and so grateful and so joyful. And so we just want to get it out there. Just remember, there are kids in need. There are, there's so many programs out there, but there's not a lot as far as volunteering and helping the senior community. And our senior community is growing by 10,000 every single day. 10,000 people turn 65 every single day. And yesterday at our pajama party, there were a lot of the residents that were not 65, that were under 65, maybe mental illness, and so they're finally, maybe they were homeless and now they have a place to live and a room and a bed and warmth. But anyway, we just appreciate you coming so much. This has been so informative. And if people just want to volunteer at the Senior Source, I know it's just maybe they're not comfortable going to a nursing home. Can anyone volunteer? And what are some things that just quickly that they could do that they wouldn't have to do hands-on maybe, but just something they could help with at the office?
Yeah, we do. Some of our programs have volunteers that come in and may do like some menial office tasks, like helping with filing and things like that. So if someone was interested in doing some volunteer work at the Senior Source directly, then I would encourage them to reach out to the Senior Source and just ask if they can be connected with someone to do some volunteer opportunities.
Well, and I know the Ticket, the radio station, which my husband listens to, so I listen to, they do Jub Jam in the spring, and it's great. And I volunteered there. Okay. And it's very fun, and you're just listening to music, but they're raising money for seniors in need and for the Senior Source, and that's an awesome program. So there are things they can do if they're not comfortable going to a nursing home. But thank you so much.
Thank you. This was so informative. We really appreciate it.
And please call the Senior Source if you have any questions and any additional questions about the Ombudsman program.
Absolutely. And I'll have the phone number in the comments, and we'll reach out. You're just great. Thank you so much. I hope you have a great weekend and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah, Merry Christmas to all. Thank you.
Thank you.
You did awesome.